How's it going, Ann Camp? This is Justin Gibney. I'm the president of the Ann campaign, and this is another civic update where we are trying to raise civic literacy among Christians so that as we go out and engage society, we can do so in a more informed and effective manner. We want to make sure that we're equipping Christians so that they can get involved in a way where they understand the process, they understand the spirit of the day, and they're prepared to promote human flourishing and to protect human dignity. We think that's what Christian in participation in politics should be all about, not protecting ourselves, but serving others and using our influence as good stewards. Today, I want to talk a little bit about this college cheating scandal and some of the issues we have in our higher education system just in general. So surely by now, you've heard about this very serious college admissions scandal where wealthy families were paying bribes to get their kids into these 8 prestigious universities. And those universities were the University of Southern California, UCLA, Stanford, Georgetown, Yale, University of Texas, and the University of San Diego. And really why this blew up and became such a big issue is because of the big names that were involved in this scandal. Now, I'm not going to go over those names. If you want to know, you can look it up. But it involved actresses. It involved some of the top CEOs, and they were connecting with these with these standardized test administrators and these college coaches. And what they were doing was cheating on these standardized tests, which is a big problem because they're standardized tests, meaning people are supposed to be held to the same standard. So they're cheating on those tests and they're getting their kids admitted into these universities as college athletes when some of these kids had no athletic ability, but they're going in sort of through this side door. Now, the guy who facilitated all of this was a guy named William Singer. And it's being reported that William Singer made about $25 million from this scandal. Parents were paying him $500,000 and even more in some instances to get their kids admitted into some of these schools. So he's already pleaded guilty to racketeering conspiracy, and racketeering is basically about running a criminal enterprise, money laundering, conspiracy, and stuff like that. And it's said that there's about 33 parents who will also be charged in this scandal. So keep your eye on it. This is something we have to get to the bottom of because it's really compromising an institution that we need to be credible. This is a huge violation of the public trust, right? Because a lot of students who had earned their way into these universities aren't getting into these universities because of cheating like this, right? So it's a violation of the public trust, but also it speaks to whether or not America's higher education system is the meritocracy that it holds itself out to be. And so when I say meritocracy, I'm talking about, do you get in based on your merit? How hard you've worked, your grades, and other credentials. Is that how you get in? Are people getting in other ways? And this is a conversation that we need to have, and one that's close to my heart, because a lot of minorities who go to these universities and oftentimes go through affirmative action programs are treated as if they don't belong, are treated as if they're not smart enough to be there when they're competing against kids who may have been tutored from day one to take these tests and to get into these universities. But now we find out that they're not just competing against those kids, they're competing against kids who are getting in through means that are not fair, right? Who are getting in through cheating. We also see people get in through legacy. They get in because their parents went to the university. So these things happen, but for some reason, minority kids are treated poorly and like they shouldn't be there and, criticized because they get in through affirmative action, which was really just a way of correcting hundreds and hundreds of years of discrimination and things of that nature. And that's a whole conversation we could have about that. But is our higher education system the meritocracy that it should be? Why is this happening? And this isn't new. I mean, scandal is being pointed out, and I'm glad that it is. But even when I was in high school, I remember some of the more affluent students who were saying that they had a learning disability so that they could take the standardized test untimed. And this is something your average student isn't doing unless they really have a learning disability, but you're competing against kids who have not only been tutored and had these opportunities, but they're taking it untimed. So I think what we need to do is correct it and make sure that we're really having as much as a meritocracy as possible and giving people opportunities who, because of historical discrimination, didn't have those opportunities. But I want to take this time to also talk about some of the problems just more generally with our higher education system, because in a lot of ways, our higher education system is broken, especially when it comes to financing. I mean, let's be serious. We have a huge student loan crisis. People are going to school for 4 years undergrad, maybe 3 years grad school, and they're paying for it for the next 30 years. What sense does that make? It's counterproductive. You don't get an education just to pay for an education. We have to do something about this, and I want to hear some of these candidates talk more about how they're going to fix this. What's your 5-point plan? Not just talking points, not just rhetoric that says, yeah, I'm with you, I'm going to support that. What is your plan and your policy? Because the reason that we're in this situation is because of bad policy. It's because of thoughtless policy that sounded good, but really wasn't good policy. And this came from both sides of the aisle. The reason that we have a student loan crisis is because our politicians thought the answer to college accessibility was just putting more loans into the market. So if we provide people with more loans, more people will be able to get into school. But all that did is sometimes it didn't even give more people an opportunity to go to school. Sometimes all it did was give universities the opportunity to raise tuition. And so they know more money is in the market. All they do is raise tuition. And so sometimes it's hard for me not to get sick to my stomach when I see these universities putting up these new lifestyle dorms and all this other stuff. And all you're doing is making sure that people are going to pay more money to down the road on their student loans. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But again, it's a product of bad policy. And if all we want to do is like somebody because of what party they're in, because they look like us, then we're going to run into these troubles where we have student loan crisis and other crises because we're not holding people accountable for good policy and substance. We need to be focused on the substance of this and not just what somebody looks like or the things that they say. What have you done and what specific policies are you pushing to fix the problem? If we don't want to vote for people based on that, then we can't complain when we get people in office who make these terrible decisions. And now we have this huge crisis that we have to find a way to deal with because people are, this student loan crisis is holding people back from buying houses, from investing, sometimes from getting married. You shouldn't be spending the rest of your life paying student loans. Yet we're here and yet we're not having a real conversation about it. Maybe it's because the higher education lobby is too strong and nobody really wants to confront it. If that's the case, then we need to talk about it and we need to call people out on that basis. But let me end with this. When it comes to things like the cheating scandal, it's always interesting to see how we handle it, especially on social media. So we start off by critiquing this and saying, wow, this is problematic because it cheated people. It violated the public trust. And that conversation is great and we have to have it. People need to be held accountable. But we quickly go from that critique to this full-on lynch mob where we want to make sure that people are completely humiliated, where we want to make sure that people are completely stripped of their dignity, and this is the only thing that they can be known for. I heard people saying, no, don't make sure the students don't get away with this either. Make sure that they're pulverized as well. And it's like, what is the point here? Are we trying to fix this problem? Are we trying to solve it? Because certainly these people need to be held accountable. I'm not saying that. But are we trying to solve the problem? Are we just going out for blood? Are we just trying to make sure that we're completely smearing somebody's name and making sure that they can never come out in public again without being ridiculed? Christians, we can solve problems and we can hold people accountable without completely turning into a lynch mob and making sure that their life is miserable. We have to be the ones to talk about this in a different way. Don't join the mob, critique it, hold people accountable, but do it in the right way. Thank you for joining me for another Civic Update. If you want more information like this, you need to listen to the Church Politics podcast with myself and Michael Ware. It comes out every week, and we talk about issues like this from a biblical point of view. Also, please spread this to your friends, people that you go to church with. The more people that know about this, the more people that will learn. Appreciate you. Have a good weekend.